There are two problems haunting the US government, and at their core sits the global role of the dollar. This is a story of revamping manufacturing and of reviving old ideas with a radical new twist called the Mar-a-Lago Accord. The proposed solutions offer a glimpse at US policy to come, but could end up breaking the global dominance of the dollar. Similar to industrial stories today, this story starts with cars. American cars in the 1980s.
No secret, a lot of people believe American cars aren't built as well as Japanese or European cars.
But it wasn't just the build, it was also price.
The United States was buying a lot more Japanese cars and German cars, and Japan and Germany were importing a lot less from the United States. And the Reagan administration was concerned about this.
Cars produced in the United States were more expensive for foreign consumers, driving down sales. US manufacturers were enjoying cheap steel imports, but selling their products overseas was difficult. One reason, the Americans argued, the dollar was overvalued. Pressure intensified for US manufacturing to be more competitive, so that America could no longer be pushed around. So, in September 1985, finance ministers of West Germany, France, the US, Britain and Japan met to strike a deal to change the course of manufacturing and the dollar.
It was an agreement negotiated at the Plaza Hotel in New York City, which coincidentally Donald Trump bought about 3 years later, didn't own it at the time.
The goal of the Plaza Accord was to devalue the dollar itself, something that plays out on the stage of foreign exchange markets. They are pretty weird marketplaces, because they trade money for money, which means the price tag for one currency is always made out in another currency. And there are a couple of reasons why that price tag could be higher than it should be. If a lot of people want to buy products or services from the United States and need to buy dollars for it, the dollar price rises. But that's not all. Oil around the world is traded in dollars. Financial markets globally use it as a basis for many contracts. And in many places, people and businesses trust the dollar more than their own currency. What that does, it creates a lot of extra demand for dollars, which pushes up the price for dollars.
What happened after Plaza was central banks themselves became market actors, right? They possessed foreign currency reserves. And so you had, Germany and Japan essentially selling dollars in foreign exchange markets, and then the United States doing the opposite, buying German marks and Japanese yen.
With a lot of sales of dollars at the same time, the market followed and pushed the dollar price lower. But the Plaza intervention wasn't a permanent fix, especially since 2014 the dollar's value kept creeping up. Which leads to today, where trade imbalances are top of the news again. Donald Trump has spoken out against the dollar's value multiple times, citing especially the price difference between the dollar and the Japanese yen and Chinese yuan as disproportionate. The role of the dollar is massive, accounting, for example, for half of global trade invoicing. And that's where the Mar-a-Lago Accord comes in. Referencing the Plaza Accord, it's named after Donald Trump's golf resort. It's an idea in this paper published by Stephen Miran in November 2024. He's now Donald Trump's top economic advisor.
As the Trump administration has been implementing some of its economic policies here in the first couple months of its term, some folks have been sort of pointing back to that paper and trying to really perhaps explain the administration's policies in light of what was argued in this paper.
In its first part, it suggests that the US pressured countries into helping it devalue the dollar with tariffs, and that it threatened to withdraw military support. If tariffs are a stick, Trump would budge on his tariff regime if other countries cooperate in currency. Threatening to pull the US defense umbrella to get cooperation on economic policy would be a major shift in foreign policy. Senior members of the US administration have already questioned whether the United States should provide military support around the globe for free. The dollar's value has dropped since the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency, as his destruction of the international trading system ushered in uncertainty. It's mostly seen as a sign that investors are losing faith in the US, a first sign that Trump could be breaking the dollar's grip on the world. But there is a second concern in Stephen Miran's playbook: government debt. To pay for expenditures like the military, education, and health, governments all around the world take on debt. For example, the US issues bonds, debt contracts that are sold to people, banks, and other investors. These creditors lend money to the government for, let's say, 10 years. They receive some interest payments and technically get their money back after the agreed time. The US government borrows about $2 trillion every year like this. But the interest payments the US government makes out to its creditors have jumped since 2021. The US central bank had raised interest rates to rein in inflation, pushing up borrowing costs for the government as well.
The second leg of the Mar-a-Lago Accord is essentially this goal to reduce US debt service costs.
The idea would be to force other countries to swap the US bonds they hold already for new bonds that last for 100 years and pay no or lower interest. And that's a slippery slope because it casts doubt on the creditworthiness of the US government.
Yeah, this is such an unprecedented idea. This is, in my opinion, the most kind of fantastical part of this. I have a hard time imagining this actually happening. But frankly, I have a hard time imagining them even asking for this because I think it'd be kind of nuts.
So far, these plans are not official policy. But they could lead to investors further losing trust in the dollar because it threatens the institutions that uphold the currency's role now. Some investors are already moving away from the dollar. In recent years, foreign countries intensified their purchases of gold, but with massive savings sloshing around the world, what else can serve as a storage of value?
I do think this potential for Europe to find the political will to potentially unite capital markets and to start to borrow in ways that would, again, create larger asset pools could really, not that they could rival the dollar, right? But start to present a realistic alternative for diversification.
And that's the problem. Trump's policies could in fact drive down the value of the dollar, not because of a negotiated deal, but because people don't want to do business with the US anymore. In that world, the US would have to bring out the big guns to get ahead on debt, but most people and countries don't want to be told which currency to use at gunpoint. And that's the risk of this plan to change global finance, that it's so radical it breaks the dollar's dominance in its wake.